Hello everyone, welcome to my channel J.A.I. Just Architecture and Infrastructure. So this is my very first new video, and in this video we are going to discuss about something absolutely fundamental and basic. And if you are someone looking to start your career or journey in DevOps, cybersecurity, or anything that is related to coding or production level stuff, this video is very important for you. And the topic that we are going to discuss today is Linux. So let's start our video and discuss what is Linux. So today the topic is Linux. Let's discuss what is Linux. Linux is generally an operating system that you basically use just like a Windows in your computer. Our computer consists of Windows user OS generally. Here you can look at here. This is the interface, your Windows, and Linux is also an OS which is kind of Windows, which is mostly used in production level and server level, and it is not used by most of the members daily because due to its complex nature and many of the things are done in Linux using command line interface, so that's what is also called as command line interface. And coming to Windows, it is a GUI, graphical user interface. So what does command line and graphical user interface mean? Command line basically means you operate using commands. Simple, just very simple. And graphical user interface represents for each and every action you will be having some buttons and you will be clicking on them to proceed further. Suppose let's say if we install any application in Windows, we just click on the exe file. We just click on the exe file and click OK and continue so that the application will be installed. And whereas coming to CMD, here you will be installing applications using a command. Suppose let's say we want to install an application Git in Linux, then simply write sudo apt in install sudo apt install git, and if you type this command in the terminal and press enter and give yes or no option means it will be installed and done. Whereas in the Windows you will be just going through your browser and you will be typing something with downloads, and you will be selecting the operating system. Git for Windows 64 setup. Just need to start download it. Let's wait for the download to be happen. Okay, the download is done, and here you can see the installation is done using buttons. The graphical user interface, you will be getting some graphic kind of stuff. These things are known as graphics. So you'll be doing like that. This is called as a graphical user interface, and I will be showing how command line interface works in the upcoming part of this video. So just wait until then. So finish. Git is up and running in our system. You can see git install git bash. Okay, that's fine. And let's jump back to the topic Linux. Okay, why we should use Linux? Coming to the topic, why we should use Linux? It is basically Linux is an uh, is free and open source. So you might be asking, bro, what are free and open source? They seem to be same, but in general, free and open source are not different. Free is something that you can use the application. Free means something that you can use it for free without paying. So you don't need to pay amount. And the other thing about free is you can't change it. You can't change it. Suppose let's say what is the free application? Let's take WhatsApp. Okay, WhatsApp is free but not open source. You won't be getting any code of WhatsApp that is officially provided by the Meta in GitHub or any another public service repositories. So you can't change WhatsApp to function as upon your own. Though you can use some features and make it work according to you, but that doesn't mean open source. Whereas coming to open source, it has some different story. Open source means it is free and available in public. The code, suppose talking in terms of application, let's say an app is made open source means the code of the application will be public. Okay, so that you can modify it, you can modify the code or suggest changes to the code, and or develop your own version by using it as base. Your own version. Perfect example for this is browser. Okay, all browsers basically run on a backend platform known as Chromium. Okay, I don't know whether who owns this. I think it's Google. It's owned by Google. So many browsers you see like Chrome, Brave, or the recent ones such as Arc. These are built on top of Chromium. So so that's what I'm telling here. If the code is made public and you can use that for free means, then that is called as open source. Linux is an open source. You can see Linux GitHub means. You can see here the repository of the Linux is present here, which is developed by Torvalds Linus. He is the founder of Linus Torvalds. So he made it public. so that everyone can use it and build an operating system. And on top of this, many of operating systems are born on that Linux code. So my pen has changed. On that Linux code, many operating systems have been designed, such as Ubuntu, Kali, CentOS, uh, Alpine. If we can discuss, means there are n number of flavors in Linux. Each has its own, mm, each has its own different style. Most famous were these, and there is another called as Red Hat. It's basically an enterprise Linux used in most of the corporates. It's an enterprise version Linux. It is also available in public. Most of the companies I was seeing on the internet use Red Hat. Okay. The most famous among these ones are the Ubuntu and Kali. It's a general and beginner friendly. And Kali, you might know about this, and you hear a lot of times because everyone wants to learn hacking. So the thing that comes to mind whenever you hear the term hacking is Kali Linux. This Linux is built for hacking purpose or cyber security purposes. I mean, with Ubuntu also you can do by adding the Kali Linux libraries in Ubuntu, but the Kali Linux is specifically built for that. Okay, so this is what about Linux. And coming to the topic, why Linux? Okay, so the first point we have discussed, it is free and open source. And the second point we're gonna discuss is generally Linux consumes less resources when compared to other ways. It, it requires less RAM and storage. Suppose let's say if to run Windows 11 you need a quad core CPU, 4 core. I mean it works on a dual core CPU also, but to run it more smoothly and to feel the experience of Windows, you need at least some 4 core CPU and a minimum of 4 to 8 GB of RAM and something around 250 to 500 GBs of storage. Okay, out of this 200 to 500, something around 100 will be occupied by the operating system. I mean the Windows will be occupying the 100 GB, something around 10% of your storage. Okay, So these are the main drawbacks of Windows. It's resource extensive because of its graphical user interface. Although there is a Windows server which has no graphical interface, and people also prefer that. But Linux is something like old school, even in a dual core CPU. Coming to Linux, even in a dual core CPU, it can run easily. In RAM, out of 4 GB, it doesn't require that much. 2 GB of RAM gets your work done in Linux. And storage, even if you use a 125 GB hard disk, you will be left out around 100 GB of place, free space. 100 GB free space. Okay, in both GUI version of Linux and CLI. If it's CLI means more than in something around 5 GB only, your operating system will be fully up and running. Okay, so these are the benefits of Linux. So that's why Linux is more popular in the servers and industries. Okay, and coming to the other point which I had forgot to mention, Windows is expensive. Like every time you install Windows on a server, it asks you to pay some amount for license. Some amount is required to pay for that license, whether it may be a lifetime or for some time period. Okay, you need to pay extra for this license. You will be paying for your CPU. Suppose it is very expensive to get it running on cloud, because in cloud you will be paying for your resources. Let's say you're using a T2.micro system, which is free generally. Sorry, something like T2.medium. You will be paying something around $0.06 per hour. Okay, this is the general on-demand instance price for a T2.medium system Linux server. Okay, if you use Linux, you will be paying only this much amount. Okay, if you use a Windows server means you need to pay this license cost on top of this. Okay, so companies will think that it's getting too cost, so they prefer Linux. And in Linux, most of the applications were first developed for Linux only. Okay, and then they are later brought onto Windows. Linux is very driver friendly, so it has most of the drivers embedded in it, so your work will be get done easily in Linux. Okay, so that's it about Linux. And and now we will see how to install Linux in your systems. Okay, so before getting to know how to install Linux on your systems, let's know how many ways are there to install Linux. Okay, okay, Linux can be installed through bare metal method and using a hypervisor, or you can spin up a cloud machine or an instance. This cloud machine or instance can be brought from any of the vendors like AWS, Azure, or Google Cloud provider, or something professional. If you can talk means something not professional, something enterprise level means you can go to something like IBM Cloud or Oracle Cloud, or the recent one that is Alibaba Cloud. These are the these are the most famous and most important ways to get Linux set up on your machine. Okay, so let's first discuss about bare metal. Okay, so what is bare metal means? Installing Linux directly on your systems. Okay, you will be having your hardware components ready. Suppose let's say CPU, RAM, and storage, and the external things like keyboard, mouse, monitor. Okay, you will just need a bootable USB drive of Linux, bootable bootable USB drive of Linux. Okay, you just need to plug in that USB drive in any of your PC ports of USB and start booting into that Linux and configure the storage according to that and start using it. That is bare metal. Otherwise, if you have a Windows machine means, okay, there is an option called dual boot. Okay, what dual boot prefers means on the same hardware, okay, on the same hardware you will be using two operating systems, Windows and Linux. Okay, at the login at the login time of your computer or PC, it will be asking to boot into which operating system, whether to boot into the Windows one or the Linux one. You will be getting a grub bootloader and you should select the option whether to which we should boot in, like the Windows one or the Linux one. The major drawback here is if you boot into Windows means you can't use Linux. If you boot into Linux means you can't use Windows parallelly. So that's the major drawback here in the dual boot. And and if you want to know how to dual boot Linux or any other operating system into your machine means you can just go over YouTube and search for it. Many of the videos are available. Okay, they will expand it and they will explain very clearly about this. And I don't recommend using dual boot because if you are not a beginner and you don't know about much, if you are a beginner and you don't know much about this stuff means I don't recommend dual booting, because if you don't boot it properly means there may be a chance of losing your Windows existing in your computer and maybe a damage to your files present in your computer. So, so dual boot is under the guidance of any other known person or person who had done it before. Okay, and the next option we had discussed here is a hypervisor. Okay, This hypervisor is a very interesting topic. Okay, in the dual boot, we had seen a drawback like we can't use two operating systems simultaneously, right? If you log on to Windows, you can't use Linux. If you log on to Linux, you can't use Windows. So, what hypervisor does is it solves that problem. You can use both Windows and Linux at a time, at a time, and you can work on both of them simultaneously. Okay, this is what hypervisor does. And let's before jumping, what is hypervisor and what are hypervisors present in the market? Let's see how hypervisor works. Suppose let's say this is your PC, some keyboard, mouse, and this CPU. Okay, suppose let's say you have some RAM, something around 16 GB. It is very much common these days. The 512 GB of hard disk. Okay, so this is your system configurations, let's say. And why hypervisor is invented? Because to maximize the utilization of resources. Okay, let's say if you are running Windows on your system and you are doing some work, your CPU is not utilized 100%. Okay, and your RAM is also not utilized 100%, and your storage is also not utilized 100%. Where you can see the utilization means just jump on to task manager in your Windows machine, and here if you can see the performance means here you can see my CPU is utilized being at the current 7 percentage, my memory is only being used at 57%. Okay, and these are some other stuff. This is my storage, Wi-Fi, and GPU. Okay, so to maximize the utilization of these resources present in your computer, a hypervisor is being used so that another operating system comes on top of this and the utilization increases. Okay, so that's the main reason behind the hypervisor invention. Okay, so you will be using hypervisor in the later part of this video. Okay, what we will be doing in the hypervisor means you will be allocating some resources to that particular machine. Okay, suppose let's say if you have 16 GB RAM means you will be allocating some part of it. Uh, Suppose let's say 3 GB and you have 512 GB hard disk, right? Storage, right? You will be allocating something around 50 GB of this to another operating system. Okay, until your resource gets complete utilization, you can spin up n number of virtual machines. The more number of RAM, the more number of RAM sticks, or the more amount of RAM, or the more amount of storage you have, the more that many number of virtual machines you can create using a hypervisor. Okay, so on top of Windows machine I can use the Linux machine and I can increase my productivity. Okay, so what are hypervisors and how does hypervisor works and what is the main goal behind hypervisor? We have seen all that, and now let's discuss what hypervisors are present in the market. Okay, there are a number of hypervisors in the market. The most famous ones are being VirtualBox, which is provided by the Oracle, I guess. And the next one is VMware. This is provided by Broadcom, I guess. And previously it's owned by a different company. Now it's under Broadcom. And Windows Sandbox. Windows Sandbox, or simply you can say Windows Hypervisor. This Windows Hypervisor you won't be getting in the normal edition of Windows. Okay, this is not present in the normal Windows. For this you need a Pro version of Windows 11, I guess. You require Windows 11 Pro, or you can um, or you can enable it to the settings in the Windows. Um, Many people didn't or won't use it because it's not available in the general versions of Windows, and most of the people use these two: Oracle One, the VirtualBox, and the VMware provided by the Broadcom. Okay, uh, my personal recommendation is to use VMware. Okay, instead of VirtualBox. Even though VirtualBox is beginner friendly and easy to use, um, it's it doesn't have much features compared to VMware. Okay, I recommend using VMware because it makes your life easier. It has so many number of features. Okay, which VirtualBox doesn't offer. Even though VMware looks something complicated, just don't worry about that. Once you got to know about using that, you will be free and you will be free using VMware. Okay, in VMware you have something two options known as player and pro. I also don't recommend player version. Just go for the pro. You might think it's named pro, it would be costing some amount. Okay, it's not like that. It is completely free. Okay, you can be getting it on the internet, and I will be showing in a few minutes. Okay, so this is all about the Linux. We had discussed so many topics, I guess. It's a lot of stuff. So coming to the hypervisor we are gonna download today is VMware. Guys, I forgot to mention one thing here in the VMware. Okay. VMware has different naming convention for the operating system. Okay. It has two names: VMware Workstation. Okay, and VMware Fusion. You don't get confused between these and don't install the wrong ones. Okay, VMware, I guess it is used for Windows and Linux, and Fusion, I guess it is used for Macs. Okay, don't get confused for these two. Workstation is for Windows and Linux, and Fusion is for Mac. So now let's jump in. VMware Pro for Windows. You just search it in the Google. And here you can see, as I said earlier, Fusion and Workstation. Okay, Windows VMware Fusion Pro for Mac and VMware Workstation for Pro. You just click on the download now button here, and it will be redirecting to a Broadcom website. Okay. uh, Before redirecting, if you hadn't login means you just need to log in here in the Broadcom website. Okay, if you don't have an account, create one. Okay, it's just as easy. Uh, it's just as easy as creating your account on an Instagram or any other thing. Just close it again. You won't be redirecting to the product portal. Okay, go to free download software. I will be here. Okay, and here you can see many more things. Just go for VMware Workstation Pro. It's present at the bottom here. VMware Workstation Pro. Okay, here you can see, as I said earlier, Workstation Pro is for Windows and Linux, and Fusion Pro is for Mac. Okay, here you can see different versions. Just go and download the latest version. It is 17.6.3. Okay, just agree to the terms and condition here. Okay, what's happening? Just refresh it again. Okay, I guess yes, you need to read the user agreement. Once we had opened this, our action won't be blocked. Just click on us. It might be asking something like address or anything that stuff. Okay, just fill the required ones. The ones with the star, something like that. Okay. 5220, just random. Where's my download? Yeah, it might take a bit longer process, guys. Just go for it. Okay, my download is happening. Just we'll wait for a few minutes. Let the download begin. Yeah, and this. Okay, here I can see it's getting installed. Next, accept this. Next. If you want to change the path of your installation directory means you can click on change here, and you can change. I don't want to change, I'll keep this default. Just click Check for the agreements. Okay, best go. I don't want the install. Yes. Finish and search for VMware. Just give me. Where is this? Here is the problem with this VMware, guys. Won't be showing like any other app. No Windows maps. So VMware workstation is showing here, but it take to the web. So let's do it again. Let's add it to the uh, finish. Again, it has not shown here. Let's post it in the users. You should see here VMware. VMware workstation. So you can go to this location in your PC and you can start it. Let's do one thing, just pin it to the taskbar. Okay. Here you can see the interface showing create a virtual machine, open a virtual machine or connect to a remote server. Here you can see the options file edit, okay, view, VM tabs, help. Okay, so we are done with our hypervisor installation. Now we need to install the OS, the virtual machine. For this, we need to require RAM, okay, storage, and image of the operating system, and network connection. Okay, These are the basic things required by the virtual machine to get launched in the hypervisor. Even in the bare metal installation also, these are the minimum requirements. Okay, we will see how to allocate RAM storage while configuring the machine and also the network connection in coming to the OS. So what is image of the OS means? Suppose let's say you are installing an application such as what, let's say we had installed VMware previously. We downloaded an application that ends with a file called exe. Okay, and we install this and we got our application VMware. Similarly for the OS also, it is called an image. Okay, that ends with the extension ISO. If we can try to install this ISO using this hypervisor means our OS will be operating. Okay, even in the bare metal installation also, this this image will be returned to a USB drive using tools like Rufus, Balena Etcher. These are some tools used to make bootable USBs for bare metal installation. Okay, now we need to download these ISOs. Okay, let's go to internet and search for this ISO. Before that, every operating system has its own ISO. Windows has its own ISO. Okay, and every Linux that I had mentioned, such as Ubuntu, Kali, CentOS. Okay, whatever the operating system it may be, just go to internet and search for operating system ISO download. Let's say Ubuntu ISO download. Okay, download Ubuntu desktop. Okay, as I said, Ubuntu 25.4. I guess this is the latest version. This is for Intel or AMD processors, and this is for the recent ones, the Snapdragon chips that are being launched in the systems, such as Samsung Galaxy Books and other. Okay, here we have something called as desktop and server, and something called as core. Okay, core images and cloud. Okay, desktop server is something that has a GUI, something like Linux. Server which doesn't has a GUI and it is operated through cloud core. It's a readily built VMware package that can be run directly without any installation and stuff. And it is for cloud service providers like AWS, Azure, IBM, Oracle Cloud, which I had discussed earlier. And similarly, Kali also has its own ISO, Kali ISO. You can go to the website. It is for installer images. This is for bare metals. And this is for virtual machines. With the bare metal ISO also, you can download it to the VMware. And you can see other architectures such as ARM, mobile, cloud, and Windows subsystem of Linux in live boot. I mean, in the entire pen drive or the USB drive, you will be having your Kali Linux. It's easy and portable. Can containers something like Docker and Kubernetes. Here we can see the size is something around 4.1 GB. Okay, pre-built machines. You can see for the VMware, for the VirtualBox Hyper-V, which I had said earlier. In QMO, this is also one of the hypervisor, and Vagrant. For different use cases, different ISOs are present. You need to choose according to your use case. Okay, for this session, we will go with both desktop installation and server installation. Just click on here. And for server also, we had a different image, 25.4, and you can see the difference between those. Okay, here the desktop one, which is the J.A.I one, it is something around 6 GB, and server it is 3 GB, literally half the size of the image. Okay, so just click on download and get it download. Okay,